Yeah, many thanks. My name's Justin Marshall. I'm a professor of marine biology and neuroscience at the University of Queensland. I've held 5 very prestigious fellowships. In 2014, I was probably the country's most successful scientist in getting grants. I'm a very important person. I'm so important that, not literally, 20 minutes ago, I got a letter from Malcolm Turnbull. I'll tell you about it. It came through on my phone. He assures me that the country is taking climate change seriously. However, none of that matters. What I am is a human being who has a deep and visceral connection with the ocean. My parents were marine scientists, and since the age of 2, I have been a marine scientist. I love the ocean. I've spent as much of my life as I can in it, and I'm desperately worried about what's happening to our oceans. Valentine, you say you don't know much. You know much more than I do, mate. If you spend your life out in the ocean, your knowledge is far greater than mine. So I'm going to whiz through quite a number of slides. I apologise for the number, but the first thing I want to say is I'm sorry. I'm sorry to the Indigenous people of this country. We've stuffed up your country. It's a beautiful place and we keep stuffing it up. I'm sorry to my kids. I'm sorry to the children in this audience whose future we are taking away. So as I go through these slides, I want you to concentrate on just one thing, or 2 things. What are we handing to our children? That is the only question that matters for me. And the second question, which is kind of interesting, is as the world moves forward, why is Australia not leading the charge? So we've seen these sorts of stories in the news. You see stories about how the barrier reef is disappearing. You also see stories from the other side, which is about how the scientists are lying. I'm a liar, apparently. We're telling untruths. Well, here are some truths for you. These are facts, not opinion. So in 2016, Australia lost close to a quarter of its remaining Great Barrier Reef. This was from a starting point of a 50% reduction in coral over the last 30 years. So from that starting point this year, we lost a further quarter. The northern third of the Great Barrier Reef suffered the most, and 50% of the coral in that area is now dead. I have colleagues out doing surveys in 3 different areas right now, and the reports coming back from them are dire. The fish losses, which we haven't looked into yet, look even worse. The places I've been to, I've seen essentially individual species not there anymore. For those of you interested in this area, Catalyst put out a very nice program about this whole issue just a few days ago. Go visit Catalyst, have a look at that program. Today, I want to remind you about the beauty of the reef and go through a number of things. So let's just have a look at some beautiful photographs of the Great Barrier Reef and the animals that live there and reflect upon the things that live there, their beauty. I'm interested in fish. I'm interested in fish colours. I'm interested in what they see. I'm interested in coral. I'm interested in everything, pretty much. But I'm a marine biologist who is obsessed with trying to understand the reef from the perspective of the animals that live on the reef, not the way that we see it. I want to understand what these animals see in their environment. What do you see there? Can you see it? There he is, front on. There he is, hardly see it at all. I'm interested in camouflage. I'm interested in corals and the formations that corals make. I'm interested in the beauty of the reef, and of course I'm worried when I see things like this. This is a bleached coral, and here are some photos of bleached coral close up. All of these corals are now dead. They're not there anymore. The acroporas in the northern Great Barrier Reef are almost all gone, all the branching corals. These are beautiful corals of animals that are dying. That's a brain coral. And of course, as the coral dies, the animals that live in the coral also suffer. So these are little fish that would normally shelter inside the coral. These are the fish that are now completely decimated in the area of the reef that I go to. Other animals are bleaching also. This is anemone, and little Nemo in his anemone. What future does he have in his home? Good news story is that this very anemone has actually come back. It's regained its colour. Other animals such as this coral commence or blenny, these animals are the ones that are now completely gone. So what does bleaching mean? What happens when coral turns white? Well, coral is made up of polyps. It's made up of individual little flower-like units that have within them symbiotic algae, or little plants that live with that coral and give it food. When coral bleaches, the algae leave, and you end up with a white coral because all of the brown and green algae have disappeared. two things can happen. That coral can come back, those algae can regrow, which is what you see in that cycle. Alternatively, the coral just dies, and that's what we're seeing across large areas of reef right now. The coral is just dying. What's causing bleaching? Unequivocally, it's to do with climate change, carbon emissions, sea temperatures. I don't need to go through this. Here are bleaching events on the Great Barrier Reef. There have been 3 major bleaching events on the Great Barrier Reef. One in 98, one in 2002, and the one this year, and you can see the figures up there. Just to give you an impression, in 1998, the world lost 16% of its reef due to the bleaching event there. So what happened to the reef in 2016, the Great Barrier Reef? Climate change, along with the El Nino this year, put temperatures up by 1.35 degrees, which led to mass coral bleaching. This map was put together by a colleague of mine, Terry Hughes, from the James Cook University, and what you see there are the 3 sections of the Great Barrier Reef: the northern sector, the middle sector, the southern sector, which is pretty much the way it was 9 months ago. The northern sector will not be the same again in my lifetime. It will probably never be the same again. You can see the figures there. Terry surveyed 522 reefs, 81% were severely bleached. The southern reefs fared better. What's happening to those reefs now? We'll go through that in a minute. Here's some aerial surveys of the reefs. You've probably seen these clips on the news. What you're seeing here are bleached corals, and some of those reefs had up to 90% bleaching of the corals. Most of those corals in the northern sector are still in a very stressed state. Some of them are coming back, as I said, about 50% are coming back, others are not. What worries me the most is what our media and politicians are telling us, because we're told by the Courier Mail, for example, that the bleaching was a whitewash. Our scientists are lying. We're telling untruth. The fact is that they're the people that are lying, and another fact is that the Great Barrier Reef is still worth visiting. Tourists should not be put off from coming here. I can take you to places on the Great Barrier Reef which are fantastic. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't be worried about what we're losing, and I don't understand their attitude in this regard. What's happening to the reefs now is, and these are 2 maps of the impact of the bleaching, and what you can see is that where there are purple spots on that map on the right, for instance, more than 50% of the corals there have already disappeared. So these are maps of mortality which are coming out as we speak, but as I've said, the figures are pretty dire. And these are put together by very laborious, extensive underwater surveys where people spend a lot of time underwater with a tape measure, measuring how many corals are bleached, and these are corals bleached on the northern Great Barrier Reef from a few months ago. So what will happen to the Great Barrier Reef in the future? We're now in a cycle of seeing bleaching events less than every 15 years. Reefs take at least 15 or 20 years to recover, so we're in cycles of events which do not allow the reefs to recover. The Great Barrier Reef will not be the same, as I've said, in my lifetime as it was 9 months ago. And without accelerated action on climate change, to cut to the chase, there will be no Great Barrier Reef in 2050. There'll be something there, but it'll be a very depauperate, a very reduced rock with a piece of algae attached to it. What happens when reefs bleach? You can see some more pictures here of coral disappearing. Algae grows, the colour comes back, but that's a dead coral with no fish in it. The fish that live in these corals can no longer live because they don't have a place to shelter. So the reefs that I took my children to, that I take my children to, are not there anymore. This is a worry that Barack Obama and Sir David Attenborough had, and expressed the wish that their grandchildren, they hope, could see a reef. In fact, it's our children who can no longer see reefs that used to be there. I was privileged enough to work with Sir David on the, there's me on the right-hand side in the sub. I took Dave around in a submersible, showed him the reef, talked about the reef, talked about problems. A great opportunity for a scientist. And he is also extremely worried about what's going on. In particular, most of the coral I took Sir David to is now dead. So what's the monetary value of the reef? We hear figures like $6 billion a year, 64,000 jobs in tourism. What's the real number? Well, here they are. In fact, the reef is probably worth, in capital terms, more like 15 to 20 billion. If you add that up in terms of capital assets, the figures come out at hundreds of billions of dollars. The mine is going to cost more than that. We already know that. So what is the reef what is the value of the reef in terms of dollars? Well, I asked the question, why do we have to value the reef in terms of dollars? The reef is where a third of all species on this planet go to as part of their lifestyle, as part of their life cycle. That will have tremendous impact on fisheries. In some countries, not Australia, they get more than 50% of their protein from reefs. What's going to happen to them when their reefs disappear? Where do they turn to for that protein? But for me, more importantly, is that the nature of the reef, what's out there, is a spiritual and emotional thing, and my well-being has suffered because of what's happened this last year. I was sick for a month after I came back from the Great Barrier Reef, having seen the bleaching. And this is something that's affecting everyone. So what's my response to that? Well, my response is this little piece of plastic. I'll talk to you about it outside. It's a citizen science program where I want to build a community of people back out on the reef. I take school kids out, and our central mantra is this: shh, tell me and I'll forget. I'm telling you stuff, you're going to forget this. You're going to go home and go, oh, that was nice, or not. It was a bit depressing. Who was that guy? Can't remember his name. Tell me I forget. Show me I may remember. Involve me, I learn. I want to involve everyone here. I want to take everyone in this courtroom out to the reef and show you what's going. Show you what's happening. Show you the wonderful bits left and show you the not so wonderful bits that are not left. So this is an educational tool. It's a global awareness tool. It matches basically the colours of this like a paint chart up to the colours of the reef as it changes colour. Don't have time to go through it. We are present in 70 countries worldwide. It's quite a big organisation now. And at the moment, right now this month, Reef Blitz, which is being run by the Great Barrier Reef Foundation, is encouraging as many people as possible to get to the reef, come out with us and be a scientist on the reef. We speak to government, universities, public and educators, and we're trying to build this community in terms of making people aware and making people participate in what's going on the Great Barrier Reef. What must we do to save the Great Barrier Reef? Two very important things. We must pay attention to water quality. We must have better farming practice. We must do lots of these things which are part of the Reef 2050 plan, which you may have heard of. However, vitally, the second thing which we must do is look after the climate. Because if we have wonderful water quality in 2050 and no reef, it'll be nice water to surf in. You know, the reef's there to protect the coastline, but we'll have bigger surf if there's no reef there. So the answer is unequivocally renewable energy. We have to run at this at full speed. We have to drop coal. We have to drop any more carbon into the atmosphere. And we have to do it at a rate which is completely different to those rates that our governments are telling us about. The letter I just got from Malcolm Turnbull 20 minutes ago tells me that the federal government has all this in hand. No, it does not. Malcolm, you are lying. I'm sorry to call our Prime Minister a liar, but he is. So, two things. We've got to solve the water problem. We've got to solve the local problems. We've got to be better fishermen, better farmers. But we have to solve the global warming problem much faster than that. And what must we say to our children? Again, I'm sorry. We are violating the rights of nature. We need to do better and work together as a community, and come and join me in this Coral Watch community if you want to. We must look to and learn from nature and rebuild the future for our kids, and look at the future that we owe Mother Nature herself. So I'm sorry to Mother Nature, I'm sorry to my children, but we'll do better in the future with your help. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was speedy and amazing, and my brain is ready to explode, but that was awesome. Thank you so much. Do we have any very quick questions? Because we have one more speaker and then we'll take a little break. Hello. A question from the panel, Luke? From the Tribunal. No, we don't have time. I'm so sorry. Yep. But you can grab him after, okay? Promise.
Again, thanks for a really fantastic, informative and inspiring presentation. I think it's so important that we do know what the facts are, because they're so serious, it's easy for us not to want to confront them. But I think our response to it has to be one of action, not of depression, not of turning away. So I wanted to ask you, with the people and the children especially who have taken out on the reef as part of the Coral Watch What response have you got from them?
Initially, well, they're fascinated by the reef if they haven't been there before. As soon as they begin to understand the problem, they want to help more and more. It becomes, I mean, it's one of the most rewarding things I do. You know, I do lots of brainy science and solve questions and shit like that. It's wonderful to do that, but it's also much more important to see the response from a group of school kids that you take to the reef and see in their faces the realisation that this might disappear. And what's very important is not to shy away from that truth and not to try and protect the children from what we're doing to the reef. Because when I see the response in their faces of, here's a problem, let's fix it, that's the answer. The kids have the answer. They immediately go, let's fix it.
Excellent. Thank you. I think we are well and truly informed, so thank you so much. Can we give it up for Justin again? That's wonderful.